Welcome to the stories on Echoes of Revenge. Step into a world where love turns dangerous, revenge feels inevitable, and every story drags you deeper into the shadows of desire, betrayal, and the human heart. Let's begin today's story. The law office buzzed with divorce proceedings as my sister Rebecca's attorney reviewed asset division documents. Her marriage to investment banker David Martinez was ending, and apparently my house had become part of their negotiations. The Oakwood estate is valued at $2.8 million and represents your largest family asset, attorney Patricia Winters announced, examining asset inventory documents spread across the mahogany table. The Oakwood estate. My house, purchased 3 years ago with cybersecurity consulting earnings, had been reclassified as community property during Rebecca's divorce planning. The family house has been our primary residence for years, Rebecca replied confidently. David never contributed to its maintenance. Primary residence. If only she knew her primary residence included mortgage payments I'd made for 3 years, property taxes exceeding her salary, and insurance premiums protecting assets she'd never owned. My family preferred Rebecca's version where my cybersecurity business was computer consulting that couldn't generate enough income for multi-million-dollar real estate. The property deed should reflect family ownership, Mom added, clearly prepared for this consultation. Emma's been generous sharing the family home, but legally, we all have ownership interests. Ownership interests based on holiday gatherings at what they considered inherited property rather than real estate I'd purchased outright. David's trying to claim partial ownership through marriage, Dad continued indignantly. But that house has been in our family for years. Been in our family for years. The house had been in my name for exactly 3 years, purchased with cybersecurity fees that made me financially independent at 31. Emma's computer work pays utilities and basic maintenance, Rebecca explained patiently to her attorney. But property ownership has always been a family arrangement. I handle major household decisions and social coordination. Major household decisions consisting of choosing wine for dinner parties and selecting landscaping companies whose bills I'd paid without her knowledge. We need to protect the family asset from David's claims, Attorney Winters concluded, making notes on legal pads. I'll file motions establishing family ownership and preventing spousal claims. Family ownership requiring family contributions rather than assumptions about inherited real estate. Emma's been quiet during all this, Rebecca observed, glancing toward me. Legal proceedings can be overwhelming for someone unfamiliar with complex financial arrangements. Complex financial arrangements including cybersecurity contracts with 12 Fortune 500 companies, intellectual property licensing worth millions, and liquid assets to purchase her divorce settlement 3 times over. My phone buzzed with a text from Janet Morrison, Premier Title Company. Emergency verification requested for Oakwood property. Divorce court filing contains ownership discrepancies. I should step outside to take this call, I mentioned. Work call during family legal meetings? Rebecca sighed with exasperation. This property discussion affects your living situation too. What they were deciding. About my property. Using legal resources that would discover who had been making mortgage payments for 3 years. Janet, what's the situation? We've received a court order requesting title verification. Someone's claiming family ownership in divorce proceedings, but our records show sole ownership under your name. What verification do you need? Full ownership documentation, mortgage records, payment history. The court needs to establish legitimate ownership claims before proceeding with asset division. Legitimate ownership requiring actual financial contributions rather than family gathering attendance. The consultation continued as Rebecca's attorney developed strategies for protecting what she'd been told was family property. I coordinated with title companies while inside. Conversations flowed about asset protection for real estate they'd never legally owned. The property's value has increased significantly since purchase, Attorney Winters explained to my family. We need to ensure David can't claim appreciation benefits through community property laws. Appreciation resulting from cybersecurity consulting income exceeding their understanding of technology-based revenue generation. Emma's computer consulting helps with basic expenses, Rebecca said, having prepared explanations for my role. But major financial responsibilities have always been family obligations. Major responsibilities handled entirely through my cybersecurity business while they assumed Dad managed finances through inheritance or trusts. How comprehensive will the court's title review be? I asked Janet quietly. Complete financial audit. Mortgage origination, payment history, property tax records, insurance documentation, and any family trust or co-ownership arrangements. Complete audit revealing exactly who had funded what they considered family property for 3 years. They'll discover there are no family trusts or co-ownership arrangements. Correct. Your individual ownership is clearly documented through county records, mortgage files, and insurance policies. No family members appear on any ownership documents. Through conference room windows, I could see Rebecca discussing property division strategies, confident about ownership claims existing only in family assumptions. How long before the court receives verification? Complete ownership records will be filed within 2 hours. 2 hours for my family to discover that divorce courts require actual legal documentation rather than family narratives. Could you include complete financial history? Purchase price, down payment source, monthly payment records. Absolutely. That will show your individual purchase with personal funds, mortgage payments from your business accounts, and zero family financial contributions. Zero family contributions. Documentation that would permanently alter my family's understanding of their legal position. I returned to find Rebecca's legal strategy had expanded to include protective measures for multiple family assets they'd assumed existed. Perfect timing, Attorney Winters announced, reviewing documents that would soon become irrelevant. We're discussing the best approach to protect family property from David's claims. I've researched precedent cases, Rebecca added enthusiastically, excited about legal frameworks she'd learned from divorce websites. Courts generally favor family ownership over spousal claims, especially for inherited property. Inherited property I'd purchased with cybersecurity income while they assumed it passed down through family generations. We'll need your signature establishing family ownership structure, Attorney Winters continued. Routine paperwork for court filing. What wasn't routine was signing ownership documents for property they didn't legally own. There might be documentation issues we should resolve before signing anything, I replied carefully. Documentation issues? Dad looked puzzled, assuming family property came with automatic family documentation. Attorney Winters' assistant appeared with official papers and an expression suggesting unexpected legal complications. Priority delivery from Premier Title Company regarding Oakwood property verification, she announced formally. Rebecca looked confused, assuming title companies automatically confirmed family property assumptions rather than conducting legal research. Court-ordered ownership documentation, the assistant clarified, handing Attorney Winters an envelope with legal seals. Attorney Winters opened the documentation, then stopped reading with an expression suggesting she discovered her entire legal strategy was based on incorrect assumptions. We need to review this information immediately, she announced, professional composure barely concealing concern about legal complications she was discovering. According to Premier Title Company's official records, Attorney Winters announced, reading with growing professional concern, the Oakwood property is owned solely by Emma Chen. Purchase date, March 15, 2021. Purchase price, $2.8 million. No co-owners, family trusts, or shared ownership arrangements. Complete silence followed. Owned solely by Emma? Rebecca's voice strained as carefully constructed legal strategies crumbled. Mortgage origination shows Emma Chin as sole applicant, with income verification from Chin Cybersecurity Solutions LLC. Down payment of $560,000 from personal business accounts. Chin Cybersecurity Solutions LLC. The business entity generating enough documented income to qualify for luxury real estate financing while my family assumed I worked in basic computer support. Individual ownership is clearly documented through county deed records, mortgage files, and property tax payments. Attorney Winters continued diplomatically. Monthly mortgage payments, $8,400. Property taxes, $34,000 annually. Insurance premiums, $12,000 yearly. All payments made from Emma Chen's business account since purchase. $67,400 annually I'd covered for 3 years while my family assumed collective ownership of property they'd never contributed toward. Emma, Rebecca's voice became barely audible. You never mentioned you owned the house. You never asked, I replied simply. You assumed it was family property and started making legal claims based on those assumptions. But surely living arrangements create some ownership rights, Dad protested weakly. Living arrangements don't create legal ownership, Attorney Winters interrupted gently. Ms. Chin has been extraordinarily generous allowing family use of her private property, but generosity doesn't transfer ownership rights. To summarize, Attorney Winters announced with professional finality, Emma Chin is the sole legal owner of this property. No family members have ownership claims, inheritance rights, or legal standing to include this asset in divorce proceedings. Furthermore, any attempt to claim family ownership in court proceedings would constitute fraud, as no family contributions toward purchase, mortgage payments, or property maintenance can be documented. Fraud. The legal term for exactly what my family had been planning during their asset protection session. So the house can't be part of the divorce settlement? Rebecca asked weakly. Correct. Attorney Winters replied with devastating precision. You have no ownership claim, no community property rights, and no legal authority to include this asset in divorce negotiations. But where will I live? Rebecca's voice became desperate as she realized her post-divorce housing plan was based on property she'd never owned. That would be a decision for the actual property owner, Attorney Winters said diplomatically. All eyes turned toward me as legal ownership reality finally penetrated family assumptions lasting 3 years. Rebecca, you'll need to find your own housing arrangement. My property is not available for divorce settlement distribution. Attorney Winters concluded the meeting efficiently, explaining that Rebecca's divorce settlement needed complete restructuring now that her largest claimed asset was eliminated. Within hours, Rebecca's situation shifted from comfortable settlement to apartment hunting necessity. Rebecca's proceedings became complicated when David's attorneys learned she'd attempted claiming ownership of $2.8 million property belonging to her sister. Her financial disclosure credibility became questionable when the court discovered she couldn't distinguish between family generosity and legal ownership. Dad's retirement planning took an unexpected hit when he realized property equity he'd counted on for estate planning didn't exist in family ownership. Mom's social standing transformed when neighbors learned they'd been claiming ownership of property their daughter purchased independently. The calls started immediately. Apologetic voicemails about confusion and being so grateful for my generosity. Rebecca suggested family meetings where we could work out arrangements for her continued residence. Dad proposed partnerships where my cybersecurity expertise could benefit family investments. I listened while reviewing security contracts from 3 major corporations, then deleted them without responding. 3 months later, Cybersecurity Weekly featured me as the security architect, how one expert protects corporate infrastructure. The article included a sidebar about business legal structures and proper documentation for asset protection. My family wasn't mentioned, though industry sources praised the operational security that allowed me to build wealth while maintaining personal relationships. Rebecca rented a 1-bedroom apartment while finalizing her significantly smaller divorce settlement without property she'd never owned. Dad enrolled in basic estate planning courses to better understand property law after his expensive education. Me. I was exactly where I'd always been, in my properly owned home office, protecting corporate cybersecurity infrastructure while maintaining full legal control of assets I'd earned through professional expertise. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about proving people wrong. It's about owning the house while they're planning the settlement.